want to ask a question about the sanctions. Of course, we are incredibly grateful that there is a new package of sanctions, but we know that there is still a number of problems connected to sanctions. In the Council of Europe, I'm working on a report and a resolution on the effectiveness of sanctions. And recently, we've learned that unfortunately, up to very often 70% of the details of the Russian weapon are coming from the Western companies. Different components, different tools. So, one of the problems is that unfortunately there is no enough monitoring mechanisms on that. Another problem is the avoidance of that sanctions. And the third problem is that there are third countries that unfortunately use this as the business opportunity to use this. So my question is, what is your plan to tackle this? Because there is also a question of the corporate responsibility of the private sector of not selling that details to Russia. What is your plan to solve that?
So the sanctions, you have always to keep in mind, first of all, the sanctions are effective. You see that how much it hurt the Russian economy. The Russian economy is yet now completely on a war footing. It's a war economy, nothing else. No sustained goods and values are being produced, but it's only focused on the mass production I was just alluding to, not high quality, but masses. But sanctions is never static. It's always a moving target. So you impose sanctions, and your adversaries try everything to circumvent them. You get after them, close the loopholes. We've done that in all our sanction packets. And your adversary again tries to circumvent them. So what we see is indeed we go targetedly to those countries where we see that goods from, for example, the European Union to this country have increased, and then the goods flow from the third country, go from the third country to Russia. We go there, we talk hard talk with them. We're very clear about the consequences. We sanction their companies, we sanction entities, we sanction personalities. The 13th package that is now coming on the table is very much about that. So you have to be tough and you have to be persistent in following up the loopholes and closing them step by step. The second question on financing, besides the enormous financial support we know about, one step further we will take now is that we will deal with the proceeds of the Russian assets that have been immobilized. And we've done the most important first steps. We have made clear that the proceeds or windfall profits do not belong to the Russian assets. We can take those proceeds and we can invest them, for example, in weapon production for Ukraine. So support directly from the Russian asset proceeds or windfall profits, Ukraine. A second element, barely seen but very effective, is that we have done everything to keep the Ukrainian economy up and running. And as you know, it has been blocked for exports. We have opened so-called solidarity lanes. And in the last year, these solidarity lanes have produced a value of 125 billion euros of trade between Ukraine, the European Union and third countries, which of course is to the benefit of Ukraine too. So all these are channels where you can reinforce the direct support we are doing by other means.
Thank you. Prime Minister, please.
Very briefly on the sanctions, it is about loopholes and it is about parallel trade. So I'm happy that you're working on that report. We do everything we can do to close the loopholes, but we know that we are not 100% successful. So please give me the report, and I promise you we will work on that basis and to find new ways to do that. On the Russian resources, we have to do this in a way that is legally sound, and I'm so happy that the Commission services are looking at ways and are finding ways to do that, as you just explained. On own resources, I have never been too keen on that, because it creates ultimately a Hamilton moment where the sovereignty will move from the member states to the EU, and I would be against that. But what we can do as member states together, collectively as a EU, is to make sure that the money is available. Because either you raise it at the national level, or you raise it through own resources, which has certain political and also structural disadvantages. But in the end, it is money coming from the people through taxation, and I would say let's do that at the national level. And people, in my case, in my country, are understanding that this is necessary, are willing to do that. At this moment we do it through the budget, not through extra taxation, because we still have that fiscal space.